Ni hao, you're listening to People in the Know, presenting you with insights into the headlines in China and around the world. I'm Brian Kopczynski in Beijing. Today we are talking about overseas study tours for elementary school students in China. For more on this, Jingnan caught up with Dr. Wolfgang Arlt, director of the China Outbound Tourism Research Institute, which is headquartered in Germany.
Professor Arlt, thank you very much for joining our show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, according to your research, why do you think it is becoming popular for Chinese elementary school students to go on overseas study tours?
Well, I think this is indeed something we can see in the last few years happening more and more. And I think it is connected, first of all, to the general trend that the outbound tourism from China, of course, has been growing more and more. China is now the biggest outbound tourism source market in the world. So traveling overseas has become, for the more affluent people in China, a part of normal consumption patterns in the last 10 years. So I think the first thing is that from the experience of traveling overseas, it has become apparent that it's not dangerous to go to another country, and so that for the children also, that you dare to send your children abroad, that you are confident that nothing bad will happen to them. I think this is something, so it became much more normal to think about traveling, and so therefore, as we can see that in leisure tourism, more families are traveling, so more Chinese travelers take their child or their children with them. So this is also now, it has become more normal to think about this. And then, of course, very simply, in the last few years, the number of people in China who can afford to have this idea has been growing. And, of course, it is still the one-child policy that still most children in China grow up as a single child. So all the love, but also all the money is pooled just on one child. So that's why also this is another reason why this has become
well, but China
important.
Well, but China, is relaxing its restrictions on the family planning policy. Actually, many couples are now available to have their second child. So, do you think, even with that relaxation on the family planning policy, this trend will still go on?
Yes, because I think from what I can see, is that even now for many couples, they are allowed to have two children. Especially in the cities, especially among richer people, that still many couples have either zero child or one child, because, well, having a child in China is quite expensive, especially if you have high expectations. If you think your child should be the best in class and should have piano lessons and dancing lessons and what have you, it becomes, of course, a burden. So I think for as everywhere in the world, people living in big cities, where also for women there is a chance to have a business career. So having more than one child is hindering that career. So therefore, yes, I think this will be not changing this trend in a big way in the future.
Right. And I think it is a kind of a common wish among every parent in this world to have a kid that could be outstanding someday. And this is especially so among Chinese parents. So do you agree that if the student's family can afford the fee, it is necessary for them to stay overseas for 2 to 4 weeks at the expense of 20,000 to 40,000 yuan there? Is it more about receiving Western education, or is it more about traveling abroad?
Well, I would agree that if you can afford it for the kid, it's a good thing to have an experience of being abroad. And of course, it's quite different if you learn English just in school for the marks at the examination, or if you're in the surrounding, we actually find that English is necessary to go along with your daily business. And so this, I think, for children to have this experience that not everybody in the world speaks Chinese is quite useful. And it's not only language, it's also, I think, well, as we all know, a lot of the single child are rather spoiled children, so that they are growing up in a situation where they don't hear no very often if they have any wish. So they have the parents and the grandparents all doting on them. So I think also it will be certainly a situation when they go abroad, they will find that not everything is always going the way they wish it to be. So that will be also, I think, a useful experience. And so I think it is Of course, it is. If you stay 2 weeks or 4 weeks, it will not be a big step for your formal education, what you're learning in formal teaching stuff. But I think it's a very good way to learn about how different other parts of the world can be. And this is something in in Europe. This is quite common that for 15, 16-year-old kids that there are a lot of exchange programs where you can go for one semester to a school in another European country, so as an exchange student on this level, or you go for the summer holidays and do some holiday job. That's quite common. I think the difference is that in Europe, a lot of this is supported by national programs or also by the European Union programs, so that it is not only kids of rich families who can do that. So there's a bigger chance also for talented kids from not so rich families to do that. But this is something which certainly in Europe everybody agrees it's a good idea for kids to be exposed to other countries and to other surroundings so that they have a wider view of the world. And in that respect, yes, of course, that means it should not be a summer camp where all the pupils are again Chinese. So it only works if, of course, it is organized in a way that this is a mixed group and that they really in their daily life there overseas actually also encounter people from other countries or maybe from many different countries on a daily basis.
Right. Well, I guess it's easier to understand for the European case because there are so many countries and also they are so close to each other. So I guess it's much easier for students from one country to exchange from others from another country. But these kids, they have to go a long way from China to America or to the UK or to the European continent. And I know you are based in Germany, and Europe is also one hot spot for those kind of study tours. So I don't know if you have talked to local people about their reactions to such kind of Chinese study tours. How are those tours received by local people, especially by local business people?
Yes, of course. This is part of the overall outbound tourism wave, which is coming at the moment, and a lot of people have become aware of the fact that there are more and more Chinese coming here, and the Chinese kids coming here for some summer school or some other schooling are part of that. And of course, they are welcome, so we are happy to receive them. And of course, for some companies, they can earn money from this, either directly by organizing this or indirectly by having them as customers. So, of course, you have also the experience, as I said before, that for many, not all of them, but many of these kids, is that they are rather having problems to accept that some things cannot be done the way they like it to be done, or that things are simply different from how they are organized in China. So I think obviously they are welcome here for those people who are organizing the summer camps. So from what I hear is that they rather say, okay, you have to be paying more attention to the Chinese participants than maybe to some others, because they are coming from many times from families where everything is done for them and every wish is granted, and that this is something which might not be. And also, I would say, from my point of view, personally, I think this is something useful for children which are at least, let's say, 14 years old. So I don't think it's a very good idea to have somebody, some child coming here being 8 years or 10 years old. I think for them it is maybe too much of a shock being without their parents and being in such a, as you said, faraway place. So I think it's a useful thing to do for kids who are at least 13, 14 years old. Then they can also...
Old enough to understand the differences between different cultures.
Yes.
Well, there's actually news about these young tourists spending a lot of money on buying sportswear as well as toys. I want to know what your take is on that.
Yes, of course. This is something where I think a lot of people in Western countries are astonished how much buying power these kids have, and that they spend lots of money when they're here. Well, obviously, the reason is that some of them come from really affluent companies, but also for some of them, it's a very good opportunity to buy things here which they either cannot get in China or which are actually more expensive in China than they're here in Europe. So yes, of course, this is a interesting part. Whereas I would say, well, the total number of such kids coming to Europe, this will be, of course, in those places where such schools are located and such summer camps are located. this will be important there. I think in the general public's view, this has not been noticed so much until now. It's rather as a part of the overall awareness of there are more and more Chinese visitors coming to Western countries.
That's Professor Wolfgang Arlt, Director of China Outbound Tourism Research Institute, which is headquartered in Hamburg, Germany. Professor Arlt, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you very much.